Hello students, so today we are going to further continue with our chapter, which is we are not afraid to die if we could all be together. Right, so somehow I managed to stretch canvas and secure waterproof hatch covers across the gaping holes. Some water continued to stream below, but most of it was now being deflected over the side. More problems arose when our hand pump started to block up, with the debris floating around the cabins and the electric pump short-circuited. The water level rose threateningly. Back on deck, I found that our two spare hand pumps had been wrenched overboard, along with the forestry sail, the jib, the dinges, and the main anchor. So here, till now, all of you know that they had encountered a disaster and all the water came in the ship, and the boat was full with water, right? So the writer, the author, was very distressed. Okay, he was very stressed because his whole family was there on the ship, and the boat was full with water. Now he was trying his best to pull out the water of the ship. Okay, and then he saw that from the holes in the ship the water was still coming in, and the one more problem had occurred when he got to know that the hand pump that they had was also broken. And then he suddenly remembers that there is a spare hand pump. Okay, and moreover there was no electricity because of short circuiting. So these are the problems that the writer and his family had to go through when the disaster came and the boat was full with water. Okay, so he saw that everything on the ship was broken, and he also remembers that they had a spare hand pump, okay, which he went and looked for, but then that also he got to know that that is also broken. Now, then I remembered we had another electric pump under the chart room floor. I connected it to the out pipe and was thankful to find that it worked. And now for their good, what happened is he remembered that they had an electric pump on the boat, and he went and looked for it, and then he used it, and then it was working, and that was a relief for him. The night dragged on with an endless, bitterly cold routine of pumping, steering, and working the radio. We were getting no replies to our Mayday calls, which was not surprising in this remote corner of the world. Now, that evening dragged. That means the evening was very long for them, the night was very long for them. Why? Because of the trouble that they had encountered with their boat. Okay, and it was already cold. Okay, and all of them had been trying to pump out the water from the boat, and some was working on the radio. Okay, what do you mean by Mayday calls? Mayday calls are such calls that you do in distress. Okay, like for example, they were stuck in such a situation, they were stuck in bad weather, their ship was about to sink, so they were trying to connect to the other stations for help. But from there also, that could be called as Mayday calls, but for their Mayday calls also they were not getting any response. So that is why, and they say that this was not surprising that they were not receiving any reply for their Mayday calls. Why? Because they were in a remote corner of the world, so that is why it was obvious that they were not getting any reply for their Mayday calls. Now, Sue's head had swollen alarmingly. She had two enormous black eyes, and now she showed up a deep cut on her arm. When I asked why she hadn't made more of her injuries before, she replied, "I didn't want to worry you when you were trying to save us all." Now, another thing, all of you know that his daughter, the writer's author Sue, had a bump over her eyes because of some injury, and then later she comes before his dead, and he sees that there there was a deep cut on her arm also. Now when the father asked the daughter, "Why did you not tell me about your cut earlier?" then she, being a very sensible daughter, she says that I did not tell you about my injuries. Why? Because you were in a bad position, we had encountered this disaster and you were trying your best to find a solution for us. So that is why I did not want you to worry more. That is why I did not tell you about my injury. Okay. By morning on January 3, the pumps had the water level sufficiently under control for us to take 2 hours rest and rotation. But we still had a tremendous leak somewhere below the waterline, and on checking, I found that nearly all the boat's main rib frames were smashed down to the knee. In fact, there was nothing holding up the whole section of the starboard hull except a few cardboard partitions. Now, on January 3, that is the next morning, what happened is, they had been pumping water all through the night and they realized that they had pumped out enough water. Okay, now not much water was left on the boat, so they took some rest in rotation. That means some people worked while some people took rest, and then when those people woke up, and then the other people who were working, they took rest. So they were taking rest in rotation. Okay, now we had survived for 15 hours since the wave hit, but wave walker wouldn't hold together enough for us to reach Australia. Now it had been 15 hours for their disaster. Okay, when that huge wave hit their ship, it has been 15 hours since then, and they had been working since then to pump out the water to rescue themselves, to get themselves to a safe place. Okay, and they also knew that their boat would no longer be supportive, would no longer survive till they reach Australia. So they had to find an alternative to that. I checked our charts and calculated that there were 2 small islands a few hundred kilometers to the east. One of them, Amsterdam, was a French scientific base. Our only hope was to reach these pinpricks in the vast ocean. But unless the wind and sea abated so we could hoist sail, our chances would be slim indeed. The great wave had put our auxiliary engine out of action. Now they knew that their boat would no longer be able to survive, or would no longer be sailing till they reach Australia. Now they had to find another alternative place, a safe place to reach. Okay, and then he checked his charts. Okay, and he got to know that there are 2 small islands in this ocean, and one of the island was the Amsterdam island, and this actually was a French base, scientific base. Okay, now so they wanted to reach till that island to be safe. Okay, now this pinpricks in the vast ocean, what does this mean? In that huge ocean, that 2 island was very less significant. So that is why pinpricks in the vast ocean. But for them now, it had become their kind of destination to reach there in order to be safe. Now next, on January 4, after 36 hours of continuous pumping, we reached the last few centimeters of water. Now we had only to keep pace with the water still coming in. We could not set any sail on the main mast. Pressure on the rigging would simply pull the damaged section of the hull apart. So we hoisted the storm jib and headed for where I thought the 2 islands were. Mary found some corned beef and cracker biscuit, and we ate our first meal in almost 2 days. Now on January 4, that is the next day, till the morning of January 4, they had been pumping water. Until then, they had pumped enough water, and now only a few centimeters of water was left on their boat. Now, they knew and they looked for possible ways to reach to that island. They hoisted their storm jib again to sail, okay, to reach to that island. Okay, and Mary, his wife, got some beef, corned beef, and some biscuits, cracker biscuits, and they had their first meal in 2 days. That means since 2 days they have not eaten. But our respite was short-lived. At 4 p.m. black clouds began building up behind us. Within the hour, the wind was back to 40 knots and the seas were getting higher. The weather continued to deteriorate throughout the night, and by dawn of January 5, our situation was again desperate. Now, again, that morning, the weather had become a little bit better, but by the evening of 4th January, again the weather started becoming bad. Okay, and then black clouds again hovered above them, and again the wind was blowing at very high speed of about 40 knots, and these are the till the night their condition was deteriorating. When I went in to comfort my children, John asked, "Daddy, are we going to die?" I tried to assure him that he could make it. "But Daddy, we aren't afraid of dying if we can all be together, you and Mummy, Sue and I." So, when the writer went in to comfort his children, John, his son, came to him and he said, it seems like we are not going to get anywhere to an island or something. So he asked, "Daddy, are we going to die?" Then his father, the author, was going to console him, was going to explain him everything. Just then he said, "No, Daddy, we are not afraid of even dying. Only if we, as a family, you and Mummy and Sue, my sister, if we are all together, then even me, I'm not even afraid of dying." Okay? I could find no words with which to respond, but I left the children's cabin determined to fight the sea with everything I had. To protect the weakened starboard side, I decided to heave to, with the undamaged part hull facing the oncoming waves, using an improvised sea anchor of heavy nylon rope and 22 liters plastic barrel of paraffin. Now, when his son said that to the author, then the author again he was determined again that no, we cannot die, we cannot lose our hope, okay? And he went in and he looked for other measures to take control of the boat and to get out of this place, to get out of danger, to get to a safe place. And he uses some rope so that he could use it in the ship, and he used the barrels of paraffin as a fuel for the boat, because he did not want to lose hope, because his children, he wanted to save his family and himself from this disaster, and he wanted to get to a safe place. Okay? That evening, Mary and I sat together holding hands as motion of the ship brought more and more water in through the broken planks. We both felt the end was very near. Now that was evening when both of them, the author and his wife Mary, they were sitting together and they were holding each other's hand. And when they were sitting on the boat, they noticed that from the holes in the ship, more water were coming in the boat. And now they again sort of started losing their hope, because they thought that maybe this is the end of our journey and maybe this is the end of our life. We are not going to get saved and we are not going to get to a safe place to save ourselves. Okay, so that is why both of them were very hopeless, and they were holding each other's hand, trying to comfort each other, and they were also realizing that they are going to die soon. That evening, but Wave Walker rode out the storm, and by the morning of January 6, with the wind easing, I tried to get a reading on the sextant. Back in the chart room, I worked on the wind speeds, changes of course, drift and current in an effort to calculate our position. The best I could determine was that we were somewhere in 150,000 kilometers of ocean, looking for a 65-kilometer wide island. Now, it was evening again, and by the next evening, the wind has also become a little ease. Okay, it has eased out. That means the wind has become slower, and he wanted to know his location. Okay, so that is why he uses sextant. What is sextant? Sextant is an instrument which is used for like measuring angular distances to know your location. Okay, so he uses that. He goes to the chart room and he tries to position himself, and he gets to know that this ocean is 150,000 kilometers wide, and in this ocean we are looking for a very tiny island which is only 65 kilometers wide. Okay. While I was thinking, Sue, moving painfully, joined me. The left side of her head was now very swollen and her blackened eye narrowed to slits. She gave me a card she had made. Now, when he was doing all of these and all of these calculations, his daughter, Sue, comes in front of him and he sees that the swelling above her eyes had become larger, had become huge, and moreover her eyes had become black, okay, because of the swelling, and it had become slits. That means her eyes were open like a line. That means because of the swelling she could not open her eyes, and it had become like a slit, like a small line. And moreover, she was having a card in her hand. Okay, on the front she had drawn caricatures of Mary and me with the words, "Here are some funny people. Did they make you laugh? I laughed a lot as well." Inside was a message, "Oh, how I love you both." So this card is to say thank you and let's hope for the best. Now this girl, his daughter, Sue, when he came to him, she was holding a card in her hand, and that card, okay, like on the cover of the card, she had drawn some caricatures of the father and the mother, okay, and when the father opened it, inside that card was a message, okay, and what was that message? She had like said, "I love you both and we are not going to lose hope. I am still hopeful of some good things." Okay, so she had made this card for her father and her mother, and also she had put a message in there saying she loves them and she is hopeful and not to lose hope even for the parents. I checked and rechecked my calculations. We had lost our main compass and I was using a spare which had not corrected for magnetic variations. I made an allowance for this and another estimate of the influence of the westerly currents which flow through this part of the Indian Ocean. Now, again, this part, like after that, what does he do? He again checks with the help of compass. He is trying to locate the location and the location of the island that they wanted to get to. And what happens now? They had lost their compass also because of the storm, and he had one spare compass also, which also did not have the magnetic field. Obviously, all of you know that compass works on the magnetic field, right? So that is why it was showing some variation. Now still he is not losing hope and he is still trying to find some ways to get to the island. Okay. About 2 p.m. I went on deck and asked Larry to steer a course of 185 degrees. If we were lucky, I told him with a conviction I did not feel, he could expect to see the island at about 5 p.m. Now it was 2 p.m. when he went to Larry, one of the crewmen, and he said, like, you take hold of the steering, okay, and if we are lucky, I have put our ship in the direction of the island, and if we are lucky, okay, if we are on the right path, then we will get to that island, or maybe we will get a glimpse of that island. We'll get to see that island at about 5 p.m. Okay. Now, then with a heavy heart, I went below, climbed on my bunk and amazingly dozed off. When I woke, it was 6 p.m. and growing dark. I knew we must have missed the island, and with the sail we had left, we couldn't hope to beat back into the westerly winds. So now after that, after handling over the steering to Larry, he went back to his deck and he tried to relax there for a while. He sat down, and what happened? He surprisingly dozed off. That means he felt asleep. Okay, and when he woke up, it was already 6 p.m. Now he had said to Larry that if we are lucky and if we are on the right path, we should get to the island, or we should see that island, Amsterdam, at about 5 p.m. Now it was already 6 p.m. and he did not see any island. Okay, he thought that maybe we have lost the path and maybe we are not getting to the island. Okay, and what happened? At that moment, a tousled head appeared by my bunk. "Can I have a hug?" Jonathan said. Sue was right behind him. Now, when he was thinking about all of these, that, oh, I fell asleep and now it's 6 p.m. and it's going darker also, and maybe like we have lost the location, we have lost the path, we are not going to get to the island. All of these things were going in his mind. Right then, a tousled head. What do you mean by a tousled head? When you see someone's half part, that is the head part, and that too some disarranged hair. Okay, a head with disarranged hair can be called a tousled head. Okay, so who was that? Whose head was that? That was the Jonathan's head. That means his son's head, and right behind that was his daughter Sue also. And what did Jonathan say? Jonathan says that, "Can I have a hug?" That means he seems happy now. Okay, and now his father asked, "Why am I getting a hug now? Why?" Okay, and now his son Jonathan says, "Because you are the best daddy in the whole world and the best captain." Because he says that you are the best daddy for me, you are my best father, and you are the best captain also for this ship. Then, "Not today, John, I'm afraid." "Why? You must be," said Sue in a matter of fact voice. "You found the island." Okay, now when John and his daughter Sue came to him and said, "You are the best daddy, you are the best captain," he thought like, why are John and Sue saying like this? I'm not in a mood. We're already depressed because like we have lost the island. It was in his hand, so that is why he was not in a good mood. Okay, so that is why he says, "Not today, John. I'm not in a good mood today. So please don't say like these things today because I have already failed. And if you'll be saying these things that I'm good, I'm best, then it would be wrong," he thought. But then later his daughter also, Sue also says that, "No, daddy, you should be proud of yourself. John is like true. You are the best daddy, of course, and you are the best captain because you have found the island," she said. Okay. Then what? I shouted. Then the writer got shocked because like till now it was in his mind that we have not reached the island till 5 o'clock, so that means we have lost it, we have taken some other path maybe, so maybe we are not going to get to that island. He was thinking like that. But then he got to know that they have reached the island through his own children. Then obviously he was shocked and he says, "What?" Okay, "It's out there in front of us," they chorused, "as big as a battleship." Okay, now the children John and Sue, both of them were saying at the same time that, "Yes, daddy, it's true, you have found the island, just look at there." Okay, the island is just out there, and it is so for us, although it was a very small island in that huge and vast ocean, but for them that small island was like a battleship. Okay, it was that enough huge for them. "It's out there in front of us." I rushed on deck and gazed with relief at the stark outline of Amsterdam. It was only a bleak piece of volcanic rock with little vegetation, the most beautiful island in the world. Okay, now when his children say that yes daddy you have found the island, he also got curious, he also got surprised, and he looked outside, and yes, it was there, the island was there. And that island, although it was a result of a volcanic formation, okay, of a rock, okay, so that was a rocky island, and because of that there was little vegetation, okay. So but for them, for these people, for this family, that island, that small island was the most beautiful place in the world, because this was the place from which saved them from sinking, which saved their ship and the family and everyone in that boat. Okay. We anchored offshore for the night, and the next morning all 28 inhabitants of the island cheered as they helped us ashore. So they got down from their ship, okay, and for that night they just slept there only, and the next morning only 28 people used to live on that island. So you can imagine how small that island was, okay. So all the 28 inhabitants came, and they came for their help, and they helped them with food and shelter and everything, okay. Now, with land under my feet, my thoughts were full of Larry and Harvey, cheerful and optimistic under the distress stress, and of Mary, who stayed at the wheel for all those crucial hours. Now when they got to the island and when they set their feet on the ground, he was thankful of the people he had on his ship, Larry and Herbie, who had helped him a lot on this journey, and of course of Mary, his wife, who had been very helpful in those crucial hours. She even helped him. She was also like encouraging him, a kind of encouragement for him, and she did not lose hope, and she also took charge of the wheel and helped him to sail the ship, okay. And most of all, I thought of a 7-year-old girl who did not want us to worry about a head injury, which subsequently took 6 minor operations to remove a recurring blood clot between skin and skull, and of a 6-year-old boy who was not afraid to die. So now, and most of all, he was thinking about his children, his son who was 7 years old and his daughter who was 6 years old. Now that daughter, Sue, had a head injury which had made her head swollen, and her eyes also, she couldn't even open her eyes. And when his father went to her and she asked, she used to say that, no dad, don't worry about me, you just don't lose hope, and we need to get to the destination, right? So she was that sensible. She, although she regarded this thing swelling as a very small thing, but later on when they got back to normal life, that injury took 6 minor operations, okay. And so you can imagine that her injury was very huge, okay, but she was so sensible and she was so understanding that she did not wanted her parents to worry about it, and she wanted them to concentrate on the journey and get them to a safer place, right? And also he was thinking about his son, who said that, no daddy, I'm not afraid to die if we are all together. So he was fortunate to have such a family who was determined and who was encouraging, okay. And from this you can understand, understand that when you are all together as a family, as a community, in any situation, you can overcome any difficulty. You just don't need to lose hope, and you just have to stay encouraged, and you have to be hopeful. Then some way or the other, one path is going to, something is going to take you to the right path, and you are going to get to the destination. So that was the lesson, children. Thank you.